Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over two different articles dealing with the subject how more and more young men are no longer interested in hooking up, but more interested in other activities such as video games, hanging out with their buddies, things like that. And I'm going over this, guys, because it's really, to me, a very interesting phenomenon with this change going on because, let's be honest here, when I was growing up as a teenager in my 20s, that was the number one thing on my mind, as was for most guys. And I'm sure many of you guys watching this, it was the same thing with you. But things are different now with the younger generation, and as you can imagine, it has a lot of people scratching their heads. And, it's interesting because I have a lot of people I know that have boys, teenagers, college, and even they've commented that just simply that their boys are just not interested like they were when they were younger, and they can't figure it out. And I have a lot of theories behind why that is. One very solid theory, but I'm going to get on in a minute. But the title of the couple articles, the first one is Young Men Are Giving Up on You-Know-What, I got to speak in code here, to play video games, study finds. And the other article, it says nearly 1 in 3 young men in the U.S. report having no you-know-what study finds. So the question is, what gives? Now, there can be a lot of things here. It could be one area. It could be that the kids are growing up a lot slower compared to when we were younger. I'm 43, by the way, so many of you guys are, in your 40. I'm sure many of you guys realize that the younger generation, the level of maturity is definitely a lot lower compared to was in a couple decades ago, right? I mean, it seems to me that kids graduating college now, average kids, 22, 23 years old, seem to have the level of maturity that I did when I was 18 graduating high school. And the kids graduating high school seem to have the maturity of kids in junior high. No joke, compared to when I was younger. Does that mean all? Of course not. But it seems like more and more of a majority. And so could it be because mom and dad have been spoiling the kids? The old helicopter moms, and therefore they're maturing later, and maybe they'll have an interest in more adult activities later on. Maybe that's one element. Is it because of just simply boys growing up have seen their families and having issues with divorce and all that, so they're just avoiding anything to do with women? That's possible too. Or is it possible that maybe another element is in place, the impact of the feminist movement, where for decades now, efforts have been made, because it's not about equality, but it's more about making the genders equal and trying to mold boys to be more like girls, be more feminine, and mold more girls to be more like boys, more masculine. And the boys are completely turned off by these masculine future Marine Corps girls, because a masculine guy is not going to be attracted to a masculine girl. It doesn't work that way, okay? They want a feminine girl. Same way with girls. They don't want a guy that's a feminine woman, and that's kind of hard to find nowadays. They don't want a feminine guy. They want a masculine man, right? Or when you're a young teenager, a masculine boy. And so the way I see it is both sides are being turned off by each other thanks to the you-know-what movement. And there are a lot of people that say, oh, that's a bunch of crap, blah, blah, blah. Well, I call bullshit on that because, again, around the world, and I did an article about this yesterday, birth rates are taking a nosedive. And so countries are doing what they're desperate to get people to breed and have babies because they need it for the future taxpayers to support their economy. And, of course, obviously future consumers. But it starts with the young crew. They're not interested. So I'm going to get more to this article, guys, because it's very interesting to see this. And again, like I said, I've talked to different people I've known, and it's the same situation with their boys, and they're scratching their head saying, what's going on? So it starts off with, and again, this article, young men are giving up on you-know-what to play video games, study finds. It says, young men are giving up on you-know-what to play video games, a study has found. The U.S.-based research found that computer gaming by men in their early 20s explained a quarter of the decline in their propensity to have casual you-know-what. Well, don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's plenty of guys out there that just simply, they're dorks and they want to play video games all the time. And by the way, in my opinion, this is going to ruffle some feathers here. Video games are for kids. Okay, if you get to a certain age, if you're in your 20s and you're spending a lot of your free time on video games, something's up. Okay, you should be working and earning money. Okay, unless you're doing unless you're making money off video games, or you want to be in that industry one day, then you got to scale back, guys. Okay, particularly to younger guys. All right, start focusing on getting a job, making money, saving money, investing money, educating yourself, going to the gym, not just sitting on your butt all day playing video games, okay? It has been proven to have definitely an impact on many areas of your lives. Had to get a little brotherly kick in the ass there. It says the size of the decline was on par with the current young generation's growing distaste for drinking as an explanation as to why casual you-know-what is becoming less common among people in their 20s, according to the study of 2,000 young men and women aged 20 through 24. The researchers from the State University of New York and Rutgers University used regressive analysis to try to understand why today's youngsters are spurning casual you-know-what. See, they can't figure out what's going on because, again, I guarantee the guys writing this, when they were younger, that's what everybody was focused on. Not anymore. It says here, now listen to these numbers, guys. According to studies, the proportion who say they have not had a non-romantic S-word encounter in the past year has risen from 11.7% to 15.2%. But now listen to this. For men aged 18 to 24, it rose from 18.9% to 30.9%. That's huge. From guys 18 to 24, the prime time when guys are just like, this is high school and college, end of high school, college era, right? And they're not just charging forward to hook up as often as they can, but instead they're playing video games or doing other activities. What does that say? Something's going on. And again, there's a lot of factors here we can contribute, but I really think a huge part has to do with, thanks to the feminist movement, molding women to be more like men and boys to be more like girls, and there's no attraction there. I stick to my guns on that main contributor. It says for women, the biggest factor explained the decline in their casual you-know-what lives was drinking, which accounted for a quarter of the drop. According to the researchers, no other factor stood out or was statistically significant. Well, nobody's going to actually mention the obvious. Nobody's going to mention in an article what I'm saying about, the feminist movement, because God forbid anybody actually mentions anything that's remotely negative about the subject. It says for the men, however, of the key aspects of their lives which appeared to be having an effect, the largest was drinking, followed by gaming. 10% was accounted for by the fact that they were still living with their parents. The researchers, however, found there was no evidence that trends in young adults' economic situations, internet use, or television watching explain the recent decline in you-know-what activity. The reasons for the decline have been exercising academics. I bet it has. It's been exercising lots of people. A lot of regular Joes just wondering, why the heck is my son not bringing home any babes? What's going on here? I did the same thing when I was younger. I mean, the guy's like, that's what I did when I was younger, but why is it my son? Why is it my nephew? Why is it my grandson? What's going on here? Professor Simon Forrest of the Institute of Health and Society at Newcastle University said many young people tended to form long-term partnerships later in life, with people not settling down until their 30s. Well, that's also true as well. And I say good in that area in terms of like when they say settling down, because you should wait, in my opinion, if you're going to settle down in terms of marriage, if you're going to do it, until you are closer to your 30, because guess what? People have no experience. They don't have any money. They're too immature. And young guys need to be focusing on their purpose, not making relationships their purpose. Building their careers or their businesses. Saving money, growing that money, getting some life experience, and observing everybody else, and maybe they realize they don't want to settle down by the time they're 30 because they see what can happen. He says, I think this clearly has an impact on the kinds of relationships young people form because that lack of independence can be quite important, he said. He also pointed to what he calls the I'm not going to say this word, but something of society which deals with stuff that people can view online on special channels. It says, in which causes greater access to that type of stuff online and might be affecting those type of relationships. Absolutely. Studies have shown that people that spend a lot of time watching that stuff, that free stuff online, definitely has an impact on how they handle things down south. For example, young people might be concerned about the objectification of their bodies, about increasing negative attitudes towards women, and they might even be having fewer S-word encounters because they're spending more time with that stuff online. I don't think your typical guy is going to care about the objectification of this and that. That guy's just being politically correct for this article. What a bunch of nonsense. But that's the end of that article, guys, but something's definitely up. Now, yeah, again, you're going to have more young people going to be playing video games because they, unfortunately, you see little kids like 3 years old sitting there. You go out to eat, And how many times you've been out there where you see families sitting around and you see each of the little kids has their own handheld device playing video games during dinner when mom and dad are talking, or mom and dad actually aren't talking to each other. When I was a kid, there weren't those gadgets, and we actually, as a family, got together and talked, right? So as a young age, they're playing those damn things because the parents want to keep them entertained and just to shut them up, which in my opinion is a big mistake. So they're conditioned from an early age to be glued to that damn thing playing those games. But also the fact that just simply, in my opinion, they're not interested in, obviously back to the whole hooking up thing, because of what has been going on. I mean, they're not attracted to the women because, guess what, they're like a bunch of men. And to be fair, looking at it from the other side, a lot of the women aren't interested because the guys so many are feminized and act like girls. So, but anyhow, I'm going to go to the second article, guys. And it kind of follows up on the other one. It says, title is Nearly 1 in 3 young men in the U.S. report having no you-know-what study finds. And says, researchers from Indiana University say that nearly 1 in 3 U.S. men aged 18 to 24 reported no you-know-what activity in the last year. 1 in 3. The study, co-authored by Debbie Herbenick, professor in you-know-what and reproductive health at the School of Public Health, Bloomington, and Peter Ueda, a physician researcher at Karolinska, I can't pronounce this, some university in Sweden I can't pronounce, looked at the S-word activity and number of partners of 18 to 44-year-olds in the United States from 2000 to 2018. During that time, the researchers found that you-know-what activity had increased from 19% to 31% among men 18 to 24. The inactivity, let me make that clear, the inactivity had increased. Look at those numbers, 19% to 31%, just like I said in the other article. Men and women aged 25 to 34 also reported an increase in that activity during that time period. This coincided with one you-know-what partner over the past year. This coincided with decreases in those who had you-know-what at least weekly, and in those with one you-know-what partner over the last year, while the proportion of men and women with 2 or more partners in the past year had remained largely unchanged. Moreover, men of lower income or with part-time or no employment, along with men and women who are students, are more likely to be you-know-what inactive. Well, it depends on the age, because believe me, if you are a guy in your teens, early 20s, even if you're not making a whole lot of money and don't really have a job, because you're at that age, you're still going to, if you got some bit of a personality, somewhat decent of a body and somewhat of a clue, you're going to be able to hook up. Now, obviously, when you get older, women aren't going to have anything to do with you if you don't have a job or an income or you're living with your parents. But when you're younger, the 18 to 24 range, you can still get away with it. So it goes to show you it isn't just about what they're talking about here, the income. But again, you're going to see here, they're not going to talk about the obvious, which in my opinion is really the major factor behind all this. It goes on, while this finding would have been important at any time, it may be particularly salient now that the pandemic has shifted so much in our worlds, resulting in more people of all genders without employment. We are also now living in a time when people don't have many of their usual channels of meeting potential you-know-what relationship partners. It is not the pandemic, okay? That impacted things for a year, but this has been going on for a while, okay? I remember having conversations with people I know that have boys, and this has been going on long before the pandemic. But right now, everyone wants to blame everything on the pandemic. All the different rising in crime in different cities, they want to blame the pandemic. Lack of people hooking up and everything, it's the pandemic. No, it's not. The study, which was published in the JAMA Network Open, used data from the General Social Survey 2000 to 2018, look at the you-know-what frequency and number of you-know-what partners in the past year for almost 10,000 men and women combined. Ueda said the study is unique because through prior research has shown an overall decline in how often people are having you-know-what. The study looks at the proportion of people with various levels of you-know-what activity, including those who report no partnered you-know-what at all in the prior year. The guy is being quoted as saying, although the decrease in you-know-what frequency among those who were you-know-what active is interesting, what deserves more attention is the increase in you-know-what inactivity, because you-know-what intimate relationships are important for many, though certainly not all. People's well-being and quality of life, Ueda said. Right, exactly. There's a time and place that, People are hooking up left and right in the not too distant past. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen now, but again, we're talking about the younger generation. There's just not this interest. And there's also been talk about the lower testosterone levels because of certain things in food people are eating and environmental factors. And that is certainly worth looking into. Maybe it's affecting younger people more. Who the hell knows? But there are a lot of factors here. This is definitely a mystery. But, my opinion on the subject, what really the major contributing factor all this is. Goes on, changes in our norms, the stress and busyness of modern life, and the supply of online entertainment that may compete with activity may explain some of the changes. Well, that's definitely a factor. I mean, it's been proven by studies like that. Guys that spend a lot of time watching that free explicit entertainment online, it definitely has an ability on them on terms of them to perform, expectations, the ability to perform, all that type of stuff. Ueda said, an increase in depression and anxiety among young adults and adolescents increasingly postponing the start of adult activities such as dating and may also be a contributing factor. Although much debated, it has been suggested that the introduction of smartphones has resulted in less opportunity and skills in real human world interactions, he said. Well, I agree with that part. More and more. Years ago, this movie called WALL-E came out. I never saw the whole movie, but my girlfriend was watching it, and I was in the other room doing something. I walked in this one part. It showed WALL-E's supposed to be in the future, and they showed all these people on these flotation devices where they were sitting there typing away, talking to each other, even though they were right next to each other. They were all overweight, I might add, and they're on these flotation devices, and they're typing into their laptops, communicating with each other instead of actually having a conversation because they were right there. And obviously it's an exaggeration and it's meant to be funny, but that's the way it's going. And it seems to me more and more the younger generation who grew up with the phones and constantly social media and all that bullshit, that was the norm from the second they could actually talk. That's what they're used to. And the communication skills are definitely down. It's absolute. It continues. Most women and men report at least weekly and most people report having one partner in the prior year. In the most recent surveys, men aged 18 to 44 were more likely to have no partners in the past year, 16%, compared to women, 12%. Men also were more likely to have had 3 or more partners in the past year, 15%, compared to women, 7%. Researchers also looked at some of the socio-demographics that can affect activity, including working either full-time, part-time, or not at all, being a student, and income. They found that compared to men working full-time, those working part-time, those not working, and students were more likely to be, inactive. Men with higher incomes had a lower likelihood of being, inactive. So in other words, guys that make a lot more money are going to be obviously getting more. But again, back to that range of the late teens, early 20s, people are usually in college, so they're either working part-time or not working at all. And because they're young, at least back when I was younger, it wasn't a problem, even if you didn't have a full-time job or anything like that, to, have girls to hook up with and date and have fun and all that stuff, So again, they're trying to shift the blame on that, and I just don't buy it. If this was the case for guys that are older, then yeah, if you were in your late 20s and you don't have a job, that obviously is going to slow down for you. But if you're in your late teens, early 20s, that is not, in my opinion, a major factor. It says, higher income can mean more resources to search for partners and could be considered as much more desirable by such partners. But the association might also be due to other factors such as personality, values, and life choices that are associated with both income and the likelihood of being active, Ueda said, pointing out that the association is not necessarily causation, it probably is a combination of the two. Among women, being a student was associated with inactivity, but there was no other significant associations related to employment or income level. Yeah, to my knowledge, it's usually guys that are more playing video games than girls. I know girls play video games, but by and large, I don't think it's because women are out there playing video games too, and that's why they're not as interested. Now, we're focusing on guys here, but still, it goes back to what my original thought is with regards to the feminist movement and the way they've molded girls to be more like boys and boys to be more like girls, and they're both turned off from each other. Continues, this guy's quote is saying, people sometimes have stereotypes about how college students are having lots of you-know-what, Hopernick said. However, this is not the case for everyone, and over the 13 years I've taught human you-know-what, I've seen many students describe themselves as not having you-know-what, and for any range of reasons. Wanting to avoid pregnancy, not having met the right person yet, feeling too shy to ask someone out, anxiety, lack of desire to have you-know-what, as well as religion or cultural reasons. Yeah, well, they can. That's what they're saying, but they're not. But that's what they're saying because that obviously would be the politically correct thing. But nobody's going to say I'm turned off by the guys because they act like girls, and guys are going to say I'm turned off by the girls because they act like guys. Because most colleges are liberal, they don't, God forbid, want to say anything like that because to not be politically correct. But that crap, sure, that type of stuff that he listed were some issues, were some reasons for people back when I was younger, but people still didn't care in spite of that. Further research is needed to understand the implications of the study's findings, Hewitt has said. He says your romantic and you-know-what experiences are important to most people at some point in their lives. You-know-what activity is connected to physical health, but also to procreation. You-know-what pleasure and enjoyment and intimate connection. People have you-know-what to feel closer to other human beings, to express love, to feel less alone, to relieve stress, for fun, and any number of other equally valid reasons. Thus, partnered you-know-what activity and inactivity give us the glimpses into how human beings are or are not relating to one another. And so that is the end of that article, guys, and the end of this video. But nevertheless, regardless of people's different theories of why things are the way they are, something's up, okay? And I'm sure many of you guys out there, whether you are fathers yourselves, uncles, grandfathers, I'm sure there's plenty of guys watching this right now, not just here in the United States, but around the world, that are been scratching your heads for years saying, why isn't my son or my nephew or my grandson, why isn't he bringing home babes like I was? What's going on here? Where's the interest? Because like I said, I've known people that have been puzzled by this. And definitely it's not the case that the boys are, interested in other boys. It's just, they're attracted to girls, but they just don't care. That's what's really interesting. And, I don't think that so many have found channels like mine and other ones that are saying they're backing away and avoiding them because of a lot of different reasons. I know some are. That's definitely true because I got a lot of young guys following me in that email or comment that they've learned these things, they've observed these things in their families, how guys are treated, and they're like, that's it, I'm done, or I'm avoiding this for a while. But it's more than that, and I stand by this completely, that thanks to the F-ness movement, look what's happened. So, and this is going to have a ripple effect, or a domino effect, in terms of marriages, people having babies, birth rates, and again, like the article did yesterday about how in Denmark is pretty much begging people to hook up with their women, particularly their F-ness women. You're going to have other countries that are going to be really freaking out about this because they need babies. They need future citizens, future taxpayers to pay into the system to keep these social programs going. And there's people right now scratching their heads. Well, it starts with the young people. So, but again, we all know what it boils down to. What movement has had such a negative impact on things across the board. But nobody's going to talk about that, God forbid, especially in this woke environment, particularly here in the US of A. So, but we shall see how things go. But anyhow, guys, I thought you would find these articles interesting. Guys, be sure to comment down below and let me know if this is something you've observed in your family or your friends with young guys, not just here in the United States, but around the world. I really want to get an idea of some real life examples. Please share in the comments section. Let me know about this. I'll be reading these things and also help other guys know about what's going on. So, but that is it for today, guys. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.